Thank you to GameWork Create for being a channel partner. Looking for a Kickstarter game you missed or 3D printed minis? GameWork Create has a huge selection available, all at a fair price. Use the link in the description below to check out all that GameWork Create has to offer. What's up, Rockstars, and welcome to my review of Masters of the Universe Fields of Eternia by Archon Studios. This is a game exclusively available to Europe, so you're going to have some kind of forwarding service or a friend or family, or maybe go through a game store or something like that to get this if you're outside of those countries. So be sure to check out the link down below to see which country this is available to, but I'm going to tell you about it anyway so that you know what's available. Now, as always, a huge shout out to my patrons and YouTube members. It is through their financial support that this channel is possible. And it's because I bring you some raw and honest critique of this industry. If you appreciate that level of independence, because I take no money from any game developer, there is a link down below that you can give. And there's some sweet rewards too. There's a great Discord that's going on. I do gameplay sessions. I do giveaways. I do all sorts of really fun stuff there. It's a lot of it's a good insight into the channel as well. There's an audio update and all that other stuff. Feel free, again, link down below. But if not, that's fine too. Just a like on the video or a comment letting me know that this review was helpful to you. Helps me out a lot because it makes me know that I am making these videos that actually help you guys. And at the end of the day, that's what this is all about. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into this. So this is actually a really interesting game because it has skirmish, it has solo, it has co-op, it has scenario-based competitive gameplay. It has a lot going on for it. I'm going to briefly talk about how to play it, and then we're going to get into the critique. Now, before I get into the nitty-gritty parts of this, do know that this is obviously a prototype. The rules are still in, being worked on. Now, the rulebook looks great. I mean, it's got an index. It's got more than most final rulebooks of these Kickstarter games do, because apparently they can't do good rulebooks. But this is honestly not too bad. There are still some questions that just kind of pop up here and there, like, oh, how does this work? Or they don't really explain this too much. But for the most part, this was smooth sailing and one of the easier game plays I've had from a prototype, which is honestly quite thankful because there's a lot here. So go ahead and diving into this. You pick a character or up to 3. It's 3 versus 3 typically, but again, you can do solo, you can do co-op, you can do all sorts of stuff. But you pick a character and they have health, they have mind. Mind allows them to essentially draw new cards for combat, so it allows them to essentially be better at combat. You have body, that's how many die you roll if you're fighting against like wild animals and stuff like that. Then you have your initiative, in other words, how quick you attack, and then your movement. Then you have 2 different weapons. They have different surge abilities that happen during combat. If you draw a surge card, you can go ahead and do that. Or maybe you have a spell that gives you a surge ability. And then a special ability only to them. So for instance, Stratos here can actually spend an coin and actually gain 1 movement and fly turn 1. That's pretty darn cool. Whereas She-Ra can actually heal at the start of each of her turns, and He-Man can get buffed because obviously he's He-Man and gets really strong. So, and everybody is different. Like, each person has their own thing that they're doing that I think is actually pretty cool. We'll get into that in a little bit. But suffice it to say, you're on here, you start in one place, maybe Castle Grayskull, or maybe, the Viper Tower, or wherever you might start. It doesn't really matter. You're going to be moving around. So as you move around, you can essentially do a move and then 2 actions, and then also some free actions. The typical kind of stuff you'd think about. And so you can move, you can attack, you attack anytime you get adjacent to somebody. You have these paths here, and these are paths you can do if you own both sides. You can also fortify and get these soldiers, and these soldiers you can send out, you can marshal them to have them go to different places, and they can hurt people, or they can get areas in front of you, or you can go in between the spaces and maybe go on quests or explore and fight monsters and gain new mounts and stuff like that. So there's a lot you're kind of doing that. If you're fighting just an enemy, you just kind of roll this die here to see what their buff is, and then you roll your die and then assign your dice to them. It's actually a pretty neat mechanic. I'll get into that in a little bit. Otherwise, if you're fighting like a hero or some like epic boss or something like that, you'll actually use this board and these cards. You'll lay down 4 cards, you'll draw a card, and then be able to place it in either your attack, your defense, or your initiative. And that kind of modifies it, but it's all face down typically. So it reminds me a little bit of Rising Sun, where you have the little board and you're assigning your people. Same kind of thing. You're assigning things, except they can see generally where you're assigning things, but they don't know what your values are on that. And there's some stuff that can flip things around and swap things around, so it keeps it interesting there. Otherwise, you're also gaining places like here, this allows you to get a forge where you can now buy a vehicle. Or if you own here, the village here, you can get spells. Or if you own the village here, you can now do a merchant and get shields and potions and stuff like that. And so you gain different areas. You get value based off that. There's these Eternia symbols here. And as you gain more and more every single day, there's a day-night cycle up there. You can, essentially every single day you get 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, or whatever it might be. So you get your Eternia, which then you can use on either abilities, like his flight, which costs 1, or maybe to resolve an event, or maybe to buy different things. There's a lot of uses for that. And then, of course, that helps block off other people as well. That is generally it, except the victory. So everything is all about victory points. You get 3 cards. You assign victory points. There's a primary and then a secondary. You do the primary before you do the secondary. Secondary is actually worth more. It's a little weird wording there, but it just means it's the second one you do. But they're hidden until you do at least the first one. So your opponent doesn't know what it is you're trying to do. And they can be all sorts of things. I'll talk about that a little bit later as well. In general, though, that's it. You essentially go until you reach the end state, whether that's in the scenario or just out of turns. And then, of course, you see who won. In general, that's what you're doing. You're moving around, you're doing story events, you're fighting bad guys, you're sending soldiers, you're making encampments, you're strategically going to different locations, you're buying stuff. Whole lot of stuff to get into. So let's go ahead and dive in. Now, you can already see this, and especially if you watch my unboxing, you can see this, but the quality of all of the components are fantastic. These are already the hips, plastic that they do, which is fantastic. Archon does a really good job printing these. These are actually printed in Poland by them, yet everything else is actually from China. So it's kind of your typical Kickstarter stuff, a very, common manufacturer they do, and so they have the cards here. Obviously, everything here is prototype, but this is still... this is better cardboard than what Kaman put in Bloodborne. So, if the prototype is already quite good. The cards are a little skinny. I would like the cards a little bit more. But, they already said they're planning on thickening those, so I'm happy with that. Again, this is a prototype. This was actually quite good. I was generally impressed with everything. The art looks very nice. All the token thickness is actually quite good. Cards are going to be thickened up. The card stock is good. Everything just kind of looks nice. I mean, even the rule book, if you think about components, right, you're using this, it looks nice. It's already, themed, and it has more here than what the Never Rain had after their Kickstarter was already done running, and this is already before. So, very, very impressed with all the components and just kind of the fit and finish of this from even a prototype standard. If this was the actual game that delivered, the only negative I would have would be the cards, but they've already said they're thickening that up. So, honestly, I don't suspect any issues are going to be coming up from the component quality of this. Very, very nice. Now, another nice thing is just how much content is here, even from a prototype perspective, but also from a breadth perspective. So they have the regular competitive team versus team. They have solo mode. They have co-op mode. And there's separate scenarios and missions for that. They have a skirmish mode and several different versions of the skirmish where you start in different locations and you have different rules and different objectives, do different things. Each one is kind of fleshed out. So for instance, with the skirmish, it's mostly just you picking out a roster, which by the way, there is an ability to where you can choose to not have it team versus team. So you can have He-Man and Skeletor, or you can have, an all-lady team. Maybe you have She-Ra and Tila and Evelyn and all this kind of stuff that you can think of, you can pretty much do there. And then you get a lot of Eternium that you spend on different stuff to kind of equip them out, and then you battle it out. And then you get more Eternia as you do quests and stuff like that. So, but then they also have that narrative story stuff. And it is actually fairly narrative. I'll get into that in a little bit, but there is a lot of content here. And I was quite impressed with both the amount of modes they have, but also the fit and finish of it. It's not just some random thing. It's not just some... I just start on the board. There's actually rules around the skirmish game. There are actually rules around the solo mode and the co-op mode to where you can actually play it. In fact, the solo and co-op mode have a difficulty rating, so you can choose how hard or how easy it's going to be. And I thought that was really cool too. Now, I'd like to make a quick stop to really shout out the scenarios because I actually really dug them. At first, I thought, how thematic can it be? There's only kind of a little blurb, but a few things go into it. So first of all, right down here, and again, I apologize if you can see this, but every single 3 turns there is a skull icon. And when that skull icon happens, an event can happen, and it can change things. So for instance, there's this Fractures in Time, which is one scenario, right? The prototype came with 2 whole scenarios, and that's just for the team-based competitive mode. There's other scenarios more, but this Fractures in Time, for instance, is when Skeletor is tearing through time to try and change events. And so you're actually, there's these rifts in time that are coming up, or fractures in time, I should say, that are coming up that you can go and interact with. Now, when you interact with them, She-Ra, you actually get little story events. Here's the first one I actually grabbed. It was, Oh My Goddess. And it says, Sharella is injured in combat by a fated arrow. And this is actually a callback to the show. And if you are Skeletor doing this, finish off Sharella, fight, add a Wild's combat against her, and then if you win, Sharella is slain before Moss Man can save her, because that's what happened, right? They're trying to change events. But maybe you can try and keep the event happening as it should have. So if you are part of the Masters of the Universe, you can discard any equipment or spell card that allows you to restore health or lose 2 health yourself to keep Sharella alive. And then it says Sharella gets a blood transfusion for Moss Man, transforming her into the green-skinned goddess, and you get a victory point if you succeed either way on those. So as Skeletor, you're going through these, and as you're interacting with these, you're actually trying to change the event that happened. And then if you're the Master of the Universe, you're going to these same events that are popping up, but you're trying to stop them. Now, what's interesting about that is a few things. So first of all, it's thematic and cool, but as as we get farther in there, it tells you, okay, now swap them out. So now suddenly they're moved around, right? They've popped up elsewhere. One might be right next to you. One that you were going towards might now be far away. So they kind of change during the gameplay in the map. And again, this is a typical kind of area control, kind of Rising Sunish, small world style kind of game. And yet it has all these different elements to it. And then on top of that, because it's Fractures in Time, it's thematic. So one of the cards that the Fractures in Time adds is a Gigantosaur, because dinosaurs are coming out of this crap, okay? And what that allows you to do is it allows you to fight a Gigantosaur, and if you beat him, He-Man can freaking ride a dinosaur, and heck yes, I love it. This was actually really cool. I was very impressed with it. Another, just a small example, in the solo mode that I played, you actually fought a imposter He-Man. So it specifically said you cannot pick He-Man. That's because thematically and in the story and in the gameplay, you actually had to fight an imposter He-Man. And I thought that was really cool. You had to go and get Faker, and he was being He-Man, and he used this, and so you were going against essentially your own guy. It was really, really cool. Really enjoyed it. Again, just the theme adds variety, and then also it changes things up a little bit, right? Because, I wouldn't have this Gigantosaur otherwise. There would not be. There might be another mount I can get, but it wouldn't be the Gigantosaur, which means I wouldn't get the Surge for the long neck, where I can just, snap the neck and, his neck, against the enemy and hurt his, an initiative. There's this really cool stuff like that you can do that, really, really impressed with. Just the variety of it. So big shout out to the scenarios. I'm really glad that they didn't just say, yeah, you can play this solo and just added the AI. They added the AI and they added scenarios to it to make it interesting. Really appreciated that. It's not just competitive, who gets more victory points based off who's on the map. There's actually rifts in time coming out, and you're busy popping those, and they moving around and they're changing things. And again, that's just one. There are others as well. So yeah, the content and the quality there was top notch. Really enjoyed it. If there was one negative I could say, it was that I would appreciate a little bit more variety in win conditions. So for the most part, you're just going through the motions and then getting the max victory points that you can get. To the point where they actually give you a little hashtag where you can post your victory points based off of how much you do for the solo and co-op mode, which is kind of cool. But it would be interesting if there was, for instance, more interaction or I mentioned how you can go to these rifts and you're doing different things, but you're still resolving this. It'd be interesting if one person, if the enemies instead had to go to those rift in times and hold them. If they popped up an outpost and you had to defend the outposts so that something can happen as opposed to just you coming in and stuff like that. There's a little bit of variety, and of course I have not seen everything. But if there's one thing I would want to see in the final thing, it's different win conditions to the point where you don't even need to ride the clock all the way through. It might just be that that, you know, maybe you start on the map and it's almost a defend thing where it's like, I have all these soldiers here and I just have to hold this area. And if Castle Grayskull falls, then it's game over or something like that. I think there's a lot of interesting things you could do there. And I would just like to see a little bit more variety in that aspect. The themes there, the actions there, the variety in that is there, but in actual win conditions, it's still, you're going through the motions trying to get victory points, whoever gets the most wins done. So I would like to see a little bit more variety there. Now, another great thing is that the heroes actually feel fairly different. Now, combat is combat. This deck is this deck. However, this is wholly theirs, and each one of these is fairly unique. There's a little bit of similarity if you look at all of the characters, like, oh, that's kind of similar to what he has over here, but it's all right. So they all have, of course, different stats. Some people move faster, or have more body, or have more mind, or more health, or higher initiative, or something like that. But like I said, Stratos here, first of all, he can fight with the Staff of Avian, where after drawing your last combat card, you may replace it with one from your discard pile. Very helpful if you know you have a ×3 discard in there, or a Surge, or something like that. That's really, really nice. And it doesn't say basic. You could get that Surge if you want. Or maybe you want to fight with the Flamethrower where every time you get a Surge, you immediately hit the opponent for 1 HP. But he also has this flight ability where from turn one, he can spin in Ethereum and then suddenly get an extra movement and fly. Nobody else can do that. He can do that. And I think that's really cool. And it adds a lot of like, okay, maybe that's what I want. Maybe I want something like that. She-Ra, on the other hand, has Sword of Protection where she gains 2 defense, or a Bubble Blast where she immediately heals 2. So she's very tough to kill, right? Just inherently from that. No matter what she's doing, she's either gaining defense or gaining health. Either way, it's tough to kill her. And on top of that, she has for the Honor Grayskull where every turn at the start, she heals 1. So she if you don't kill her outright, she's going to heal back up unless you pelt her again. So very, very hard to kill, especially because you can heal and rest at night and stuff like that. And then, of course, you have like He-Man here who has the Sword of Power, which gains, essentially a Surge, or the Energy Blast where he gains 1 initiative, 1 attack. But then at the start of each of his turns, he's rolling a die, and depending on the result, that was a re-roll. There, I got 1 success. That means I gained 2 mind. If I got a double success, it would have been 2 mind and 2 body. He actively becomes stronger through buff about 85% of the time. There are 2 blanks there, but otherwise everything else typically gives you a chance to do that. Very, very cool. And then there's like Skeletor too. Skeletor has a very low initiative, but he has the ability to make it to where the lowest initiative goes first, which means when you're fighting with him, you're actively ignoring an entire row, and you can just do everything in defense and strength. Or, because you know you pretty much have the lowest initiative at 1, you could just do an all-out attack and hope that you hit first and kill them. Very different feel doing Skeletor than it is doing She-Ra, who might just have to ignore the defense, especially if she's on like a mount or something like this, because this Gigantosaur adds 2 defense, and if she's fighting with her sword, as long as you get the Surge, that's 4 defense without you doing anything. So each one feels fairly different. You're doing the same actions. There's not really a whole lot unique there, but still the variety is nice and is something I felt, which I thought was nice. I was like, oh, I could pick this character and get this, or this character and get this. It didn't just not really matter. However, as with all core box stuff, typically, more would be better. It'd be nice to have more. Now, it is 3 versus 3, which means you're seeing 6 every game. There are more than 3 heroes on each side, but not by a lot. So obviously, if you're getting this through the Game Found campaign, there's going to be plenty. I'm sure there's going to be expansions. I'm sure there's going to be unlocks. I'm sure there's going to be all sorts of stuff. But core box, what I got here, definitely one thing I would push for is to just have more heroes. I actually felt the variety in most other things was good, but obviously more characters equal more variety too across all of the zones. This is multiplied and is generally kind of nice. Plus, there's a lot of untapped potential there, but I'm sure they're going to unlock plenty there. Alright, let's talk about epic battles because it's really, really fun. So epic battles use this. This is separate from pretty much anything else. So let's say Skeletor comes here and wants to fight He-Man. Well, okay, mistake for him. First of all, he came in with a soldier, -1 HP, soldier dies. Now he's at -1 HP. But maybe he's like, that's fine. I don't care if I get -1 HP. I'm fighting He-Man. Well, no, that's fine. You can try. Now, you have this board. Like I said, you have attack, you have defense, you have initiative. What you do is you draw a card. Okay, and you'll get different things. So this one, for instance, is a time one. It says, place near the combat grid and draw another card. May be activated to swap 2 of your cards. So we're going to put that beside. And this is actually one of the things where on the card doesn't say this. And the rule book, it says you get to play it immediately. So, and the other one I got actually put this in a bad order. So let me get something more normal. Okay, so here now I have a Surge. it counts as a ×1, and the hero gains a surge activation. So I'm going to be able to activate. If I was He-Man, I would have had to pick one. I don't have the token with me, but I would pick Energy Blast anyway. So I'm going to gain an initiative, which means I'm initiative 3 already. He's initiative 1, and he can always flip it to his 1 if he wants to. So I'm not worried about initiative at all. There's nothing I can really do about that. But he does get +1 attack. So I'm already at 1 attack. Maybe I place this on the attack. Face up, ×1. You know I have that, and you know I got the surge. Some surges happen instantly, like that damage. His will happen later on where I gain that. And then he'll draw a card and place it. I'll draw a card and place it. This one says count as 1 and then does not count as a 4-card limit. You can only play 4 cards here. Immediately draw and place another combat card. So I'm going to do this. If it's free, I may as well up my defense. I'm up my defense by 1 and draw another. Here I drew a ×2. So now I'm going to go ahead and put the ×2 there. And then we're going to do let's say just 2 more. So I got a ×3 and a ×2. Let's do the ×3 here and the ×2 here. So again, I ignored, based off of just who's fighting, I ignored the initiative track. I'm assuming either I'm winning or he's winning, but either way, I don't really have a lot of control over that, unless he's pumping his initiative. If I see that he's pumping initiative because I do one, he does one. And actually it goes attacker first, so he does one, I do one. Right? So if I see he's putting cards down here, then I'm assuming he's not going to flip the initiative. So I might want to do that if he's trying to get above my 2. It's only 1 more than him. He just has to do a ×1 there. If he does a ×2, he wins the initiative. So I have to kind of play by based off what I assume he does, but I don't know, because these actually go face down, right? So this is how he sees it, like this. But he has no idea what the values are there, right? And then, of course, you can flip them. And then you see who did what. Whoever won the initiative gets 1 damage on the attacker. And then you have to... okay, so I'm doing 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 because of the surge attack. And I have 2, 3 defense with an initiative of 2. And then he'd see what he has. And then we'd resolve that. And it's really that quick. Now, after that first time, and then of course at the time I could end up swapping some if I wanted to as well. Maybe I saw, you know what, he didn't put like any defense, all in attack, or they were higher. I can swap that 3 and that 2. That's fine. That's what that allows me to do. So then he gets to decide as the attacker, if I didn't die, okay, do I just need to run away? The defender can't run away, right? I'm forced into the attack, but he can decide to do that. Otherwise, we go for a second round and then it's done. If you don't kill in 2, it's done. I'll explain a little bit on that more, but suffice it to say, the act of seeing what they're placing but not knowing what they're placing, coupled with the special tokens like the time one or the surge one or the flex one or anything like that. There's one that allows you to essentially discard that, draw 2, play 1, and then discard the other one. Really, really nice. You can gain rewards as you fight enemies, so you actually have more cards in your hand and you can really decide. Very, very cool. Another interesting thing is once you run out of these cards, that's it. You don't get them anymore. So if somebody hasn't been fighting a lot and you have, and they're fighting you, you might be short on cards, and that kind of sucks. So you gotta have to kind of judge how much you push an attack and stuff like that, especially if you run away. But let's say he defeated He-Man, he would gain a victory point. I have to go back to Castle Grayskull and pay 5 Eternia to be able to come back. But really, really enjoyable just to be able to just play a little card game. It goes very quick, very quick. It took as long as it took 2 to actually describe it, because you just go, because pick one, place it, pick one, place it. Pick one, place it, right? Like, that's pretty much how you play. Now, one of the cool things I guess I forgot to mention a little bit is once you reveal the cards, but before anything, you can play spells and you can play abilities. So that surges that you can do. Or you might have spells. Like, for instance, you might have Berserk here. Berserk says, draw and place an additional combat card. Okay, so you can play Berserk, and suddenly, guess what? Oh, look at that. I got this card, and you place it down, and then you resolve it, and you go about it. Very, very cool to be able to just do that and change things up, and there's some things that debuff the enemy and stuff like that. So there's a lot of variance in it, actually. And one of the cool things is the spell can happen from anyone on your team. So even if you're not involved in that, you might still be able to participate in it or still care, because if you're defending this area, and this is a very important area because it gets you to Ethereum and it is in a way to the other 2 Ethereum and these fancy little mountains here, and this is the fight, then even if you're over here, you might still play a fireball spell to zap them a little bit or something like that to help out. So it's not just 2 players playing a card game real quick. And again, it does happen pretty quick. And again, it's really enjoyable. That being said, if you have no spells, it's kind of a bummer because it's just two people playing a card game. Now, while it is quick, I'm still going to list it as a negative because ideally it still involves people more if you can help it. I don't like being not involved. For instance, when I was playing with my whole family and my daughter was involved, she was like, come and get me when you're done with the card game. Now, the card game was very quick. I was like, don't leave the table. We'll be done in just a couple of minutes. But still, she had absolutely nothing to do for then. Now, that's no different than necessarily somebody's turn, but the turns typically happen pretty quick as well. And the moving parts typically matter more than just worst case scenario, he's there. I can already know that. He's either there or there. Doesn't matter. So you can just kind of check out a little bit. It might be an excuse to go to the bathroom real quick or you get a drink or whatever it might be. But if you don't have the spells even available, like if you don't have any, there's nothing really to do except have them play a card game. And it's not the best thing in the world, but one of the more minor negatives for me personally, just because it just goes so fast anyway. All right, let's talk about wild battles. Wild battles are fun. So if you fight something like this, Gigantosaur, it has all of the symbols and you're just gonna be attacked, right? But, all the buts, let's find somebody here. Not a giant, my goodness. Is there anything easy here? I think I need to go into to here. Okay, let's say we have to fight Too Bad, right? That's his name, right? He is an ally, and he is actually with anybody except the heroes of Eternia. So if he is factioned with you, you can just pay his cost and gain him. You're like, hey, buddy, come on. Now you have an ally following you. And he gets a hero bonus. The hero bonus is you gain 2 body. So now suddenly he'll help you fight other wild guys. Let's say I found him, in which case he's not my ally. So what you can then do is actually fight them. Now, fighting them is a little bit different. You roll this die. Okay, he's going to get a +2 to his defense. So his strength is 3, his defense is 2, and his health is 4. Now, all I do is I roll my body. Let's say He-Man's doing it because he's fun. And he rolls 7, 6, 7. You roll these, and you roll hopefully better than that. But you assign these dice to his defense first, and then his health, and that kills him. You have 1 chance to do this, and then the attack is, you can essentially assign successes to the attack to nullify the attack back, because it kind of happens at the same time. So, with this, let's see, I can put 2 to his defense, 2 to that defense, 2 to the health, but then I only have 1 more success, so I can't defeat him quite yet, unless... Now, there's not really a whole lot I can do there because I rolled the 2 defense. So I'm going to actually just try and not die is what I'm going to try to do. But that's how you do it. You just kind of assign the values to there and you either get him or he runs off, right? And so it happens very quick. And it's a fun little thing. You get to roll some dice real quick. You get to assign some dice, and that's kind of cool to, figure out. Let's see, if I do the 2, 4... and then let's say this was a 2 and, if he had done a 1 initiative or something like that. And then we're going to put the 2 there. So I only take 1 damage now and he's gone. Right? So it just depends on how it goes and how you roll and all that kind of stuff. But it's just a fun little thing to do. And then if you defeat the enemy, then of course you get a bonus as well. And if it's something like a Gigantosaur, you can actually gain it as a mount and start riding a Gigantosaur, which is freaking cool. All right, I dig it. I like it. If it's the Gigantosaur or something like that, again, they have their values there. You use this real quick, and then you still just roll the die, and then that's their thing. So they're not. It's not a 2-player thing. It's just a quick 1-player thing. It's the only difference there. But really enjoyed that as well. Let's see, what else? Buying stuff. Buying stuff is freaking sweet. Everybody loves to buy stuff. I love to buy stuff. It reminded me a little bit of DEI here. I know you guys haven't played it yet, but one of my favorites of this style of game. I actually really enjoy buying things and enhancing different things. So you can see She-Ra here already has a steel shield where she reduces the damage a hero would lose during wild combats by 3. In other words, if she was fighting him, he's doing 4 damage. I don't care. I'm blocking 3 right off the way, and then guess what? I'm just going to heal right back on my next turn anyway. Maybe I don't assign any to the damage. I don't even care. I'm just going to straight attack you and go for broke. It's hyper aggressive because of that. Or maybe you have a secret liquid of life, which is a consumable where you can play when your hero would be defeated. Instead of being defeated, heal this hero up to their maximum. Haha, I have a secret liquid of life. Or I have a polarizer. This is a fun one. Play this when you would occupy the same area as an enemy hero. The enemy hero loses 3 HP. Costs you 5 Eternia, but definitely worth it. Or you can gain cool mounts. For instance, there's this freaking Dragon Walker that I got her. It costs 8, super expensive, but it gives her +1 movement. So not a whole lot more movement. She only has 2 movement and it's a little slow going. But, as a free action on your turn, choose an adjacent area, deal 1 damage to up to 3 models in that area. So you can now, with this card, do something nobody else can do, where she can stand here and hurt Triclops all she wants because they're right next to each other and she can just pound him with damage if he just sits there. Or maybe you have, again, like you're riding a Gigantosaur, or maybe you bought a Roton here, which gives you +2, which means he's at 2, 3, and he can still do the fly for 4 movement if you get this on him. This vehicle adds flying, so if it was somebody else, they could now suddenly fly and fly over the water to these different locations here. Also, he gains +1 attack if using a melee or missile weapon. That's all he has, so he's +1 attack, and gain a +1 defense against melee weapons. There's all these kind of different things. There's the spells, there's the items, there's all these different vehicles here. Here's a battle ram, gain +1 body, and a hero may equip both battle ram and a sky sled. So if you come across a sky sled, then you can equip that as well and do a kind of a combo thing. There's more than just shields here. There's all sorts of different armor or gauntlets that add to your body, and all sorts of different items. Here's a trap you can lay, some plate armor. Here's a transporter, which is some kind of item here, a shield, all sorts of stuff. It's really nice to kind of have that customization to where when I played She-Ra here, she's, running around slow going on a Dragon Walker, already defensive with the steel shield. This is like the tank version of her is what I built her as. This is actually how I built her. I was really happy with this. Once I saw that I could get all these items on her, she was just, there's no stopping her. She can hurt you before you even get to her with her Dragon Walker typically. She can go on quests and not care. So she would be, after I got this before she got the steel shield, but she'd be great at fighting other like wild combat and stuff like that. Just really fun customizing your hero. Like this might be the only time I have He-Man riding a Gigantosaur. That's pretty sweet. All right, kind of already mentioned this, but it's nice to be able to do the adventuring too. And notice I'm picking like each, it's cool to buy stuff. It's cool to do the adventuring. It's cool to, do the combat. The adventuring though, I really liked. So you go to these like in between wild places and you can go on quests. There'll be these little like quest tokens that you can go on, like this one here or that one or whatever. So you can go there and do the quest and have that. Or you can go and you don't know what you're going to get. I was not expecting to find a Gigantosaur. That was not my expectation. But it just waltzed out of that rift in time, and I'm like, well, I guess we're fighting. And then I'm like, I guess I'm riding on top of you now for the rest of the game because it's cool. So just really fun to go in there and then draw these things and see what comes up next. Villain's Call, I don't even know what that one is. I haven't seen that one yet. Hero's Call, there's Dino Rush, or I could find a Biona Tops, all sorts of fun stuff. Really enjoyed that. All right, a few more things. The soldiering is really nice. I really like the soldier mechanics here. So how that works is you can essentially deal with the soldiers with an action. You can do one of two things. You can either fortify, where you can put up to 3 of them here, and you have a limited pool, right? And so if there was only 1, I could only put 2 there, but I might just want to put 1 there. Depends on how many you have, because you can get really spread out or you can get really defensive. And then when you're adjacent or in that zone, you can have them move across these lines to another area. So I could essentially, as She-Ra, if I wanted to go and attack him, I totally could. In fact, I could send my guys in there. Maybe I want to send all 3. That's -3 damage to him instantly. And then I come in there and attack him at already a -3. But now I've lost that area. So maybe I leave 1 behind. Maybe I only send 2 and then I go do it. Or maybe I keep all 3 there and then I move and then attack and then I fortify this spot if I'm hoping I can kill him there. It's very cool to be able to move guys ahead of you. One of the other nice things is just the connections themselves. Like the map is really, really laid out well, and I was actually quite surprised. We were looking at, okay, how many points would it go to get from here to there? And it was always 2. Or always 3 actually for that. So it was either 1, 2, 3, right? Or it was 1 if you owned this, 1, 2, 3, or it was 1, 2, and then you could go over here to 3. So no matter which way you did it, it was actually always 3, which I thought was kind of cool. But you could go through 2 wild areas, or you could go through an area you had here or an area you had here. These 2 maps on the side here are actually connected, so it kind of wraps around a little bit, which is kind of cool. I liked the kind of paths that you can go to. Some led to areas, some led to wilderness, which I thought was pretty neat, especially if there's like a quest there, you might want to do that. for some victory points, worth going there. A lot of really cool layouts there. I really appreciated that at the start, where you actually start out, there is no troop location that can just go there. You have to go through the wilds first, and then you get into kind of the greater map connection thing that kind of snakes around everywhere. Really, really nice. One negative, however, is that some of these spots are really tiny. So if I want a quest there, so I'm now here, right? Well, if he wants to come, and now, so he's like right here, like it gets really, really tiny sometimes. It's a little kind of goofy or skinny. Like this is a skin, like her base is bigger than that spot, right? And sometimes they'll squeeze out. There's a little spot here, a little spot here. Just, I appreciate the general shape of it, but I felt sometimes it could get a little small, little skinny, little, like this one in particular was actually kind of funny because you place a little quest there and you're like, okay, all right, I'm in that spot. I'm not in either of these. I'm in that spot. You can't tell, but I am. So they can get kind of small a little bit. It was kind of my one nitpick there. All right, one thing that has to be said, I've kind of mentioned this a few times, but I want to explicitly say it as a positive. There's some freaking cool concepts here. Like I said, I had He-Man riding a Gigantosaur. I was almost fighting against a Skeletor riding a dragon. I think the concept of Skeletor riding around on a dragon that he fought and tamed himself, super cool. We had moments where somebody ran away. Skeletor had 1 health remaining, and he's like, yep, nope, and ran away like the coward he is, and then tried to heal up. But because I knew he only had 1 health, I was literally trying to figure out a way that I could send my soldiers over to go pelt them and get that last little bit. So he's kind of on the run. You get these kind of thematic moments in there. Plus, of course, the whole concept of, okay, well, let's flip it over. We've never played this scenario before. What is this scenario? Oh my gosh, it was a Gigantosaur. And so the only time I'm going to see that is in this scenario. And it just so happened that He-Man was like, oh no, there's a rift in time. I'm going to deal with it. Oh, okay, that's thing. I guess we're fighting now, right? Like, it's just really cool moments, really cool concepts. She-Ra riding a freaking Dragon Walker. Again, freaking cool. No ifs, ands, or buts. It's just neat. It's just, there's a lot of cool things to do there. And of course, the characters are all ridiculous and crazy. You got stuff like Trapjaw, or even just having Stratos go around and fly around, like a freaking bird man at turn 1. It was pretty neat. I think this is a very fun theme and just has some really cool concepts that I dig it. In fact, like one of my favorite things here is actually this victory thing. And again, it's just because of, it makes you kind of smile. It just makes it kind of cool. So the victory condition is a friendly hero wins an epic combat against an enemy hero, but does not defeat them. In other words, that you don't defeat them, but you won. In other words, they like ran away or whatever. And it says, I'll get you next time is the name of it. And I just, again, to me, it just instantly flashes back to all of the kind of shows that this was around and just, I don't know, I had a lot of fun with it. You could tell that there's a lot of passion for the IP here, and it just is a wacky world with some crazy stuff and some crazy characters, and it's a lot of fun. I had fun, my kids had fun. It was, in general, just an enjoyable game. All right, last few things. Literally, I only have like 3-4 things left to point out, and they're all pretty quick. One of the nice things I liked is that there is a focus on streamlining and making this fast-paced. What do I mean by that? For instance, I said you could go and shop, right? But one of the things I hated in Rising Sun was somebody would get the mandate to recruit, and they'd play it, and then they'd go, for another 5 minutes. It's like, read them first, right? But they're busy doing other stuff on other turns, or it was clear across the table. Either way, it took them a while to do it, and meanwhile, everybody else is just like, where are you going to put the Godzilla? Like, I don't know. In the rules, it says that free action of a merchant has to be your last action so that the other player can just start playing. You can go and buy that thing and you can take your time. There's the light little bit where if they want to attack you and you're getting consumable, they might have to wait. But in general, in the rules, it's focused already. The developers have this in their mind that we don't want to slow gameplay down by having you shop while everybody else twiddles their thumbs. I liked the fact that this is fun and neat. It lasts 2 turns only. If you don't do it in 2 turns, you're done. You don't get extra tries. It doesn't matter if you were doing good. You lost. You got to do it in 2 and then move on. I get the sense that they're really wanting this kind of fast-paced thing, which I actually really appreciate. There are no long story segments. I mean, you're reading stuff, but you're reading. I'm just going to drop that in. you're reading small little story bits. Let me find out, like this is the most reading you're gonna do, right? It's a game you're just playing. You're just going through fast paced. I really appreciated that. Really liked that attention to detail and was surprised to see it this early in development. Okay, my last negative. There are no real catch-up mechanics. If you're winning, you can just keep winning. Because calm down. If you're winning, that means you're probably getting more of these, right? Which means you can buy more stuff, which means you can win more combats, which means you can move more around, which means you can get more victory points. So in general, there is a little bit of that kind of like runaway mechanic that can happen. Now, that's not to say that you can't do good. So for instance, this is a very limiting quantity. You cannot control everything. So if you notice here, I got control of these really nice, they're giving me a lot of Ethereum stuff, and I got 2 heroes here to defend it. I got plenty of soldiers. You'll be hard pressed to do it. You could if you really pushed it. But another thing they could do, and I don't have everything on here, but even if you die and you reset here, you can come back through here and just sweep through all that stuff. If I only control here and here and here, which I did, then without much effort, unless I put them there. If I put them there, then I don't have them elsewhere. You can take it to where I can't buy anything with that Ethereum now, unless I refocus to try and take that back. So there's strategy and all of that, and I appreciate that. But at the end of the day, there is no actual hard catch-up mechanics. If you are ahead, you can remain ahead typically, unless you make a mistake or they don't, they botch something other than that. But for the most part, this is as close as you get, I feel, to actually having any kind of limiting factor on kind of the runaway thing. For the most part, a better player will just keep winning, and if you're kind of down early, you will probably just stay down. From my experience, now it could just be the people I played with. And if you're bothered with that, you can always play solo co-op. They have plenty of that as well, or skirmish where there's no, it's just back and forth. But anyway, just kind of a general note. I didn't really see a way for one of the players that I was playing with to be able to really come back in one of the games. And I was like, that's worth noting. They lost early on. It's not quite like the Risk thing where they lost like 3 hours, early, but, it was still one of those kind of things. All right, last comment is I did appreciate all the different ways that you can get victory points. Like I said, you can get victory points by if you defeated Skeletor, guess what? Victory point. If you did one of your 3 here, guess what? Victory point. If you don't like one of them there, pay an Ethereum, get a new victory card, right? If you don't like, you can do the primary, you can do the secondary. If you can also go to quests and do events. So maybe you're like, you know what? I'm not having any luck fighting them. I'm just going to go do events and try and get the victory points that way. Because look, here, victory point. There's more. Victory point. Victory point, right? So you can do these events to get victory points as well, which I appreciated. And in fact, and like this one here, halfway through, suddenly those were worth double. So you can get 2 victory points for each quest you were doing. So if you were only focused on fighting people and entrenching yourself and not really able to get to the quests in time, the person who was doing that now has a little bit of an advantage, right? They're just like, oh, hey, boom, right there. Let's do a quest. Oh, bam, right there. Let's do a quest. Right? It's almost a race to get quests at that point because 2 victory points. That's like defeating 2 whole heroes. Worth it, right? So there's a lot of just nice. I really like when there's a variety that you can do. So it's not just doing one thing. It's not just I'm just going to kill heroes over and over and over again. Because all that means is you end up with all of your heroes around the spawn point and you just keep trying to kill them, especially if you're in the lead. That it makes it nice to where there are other ways to get victory points, and sometimes those ways are even better. So very nice indeed. And with that, that's it. That's my thoughts on Masters of the Universe, Fields of Eternia by Archon Studio. Again, there is a link down below to the Game Found campaign. Very happy I was able to play this. Really, really was. It was a joy. One of the first games I ever got for the family before this channel and everything was Small World, and we enjoyed that a ton. And then of course I liked Blood Rage, and then I got Rising Sun, and I loved DEI, and I really like these kind of games where you can kind of spread around and keep your forces around, and you're trying to bypass other people and do all that stuff. But then when it layered on the equipment, when it layered on the mild questing, it kind of reminded me of like the Fallout board game mixed with something like Small World, in a way to where I really, really appreciated it. And then of course it has this amazing theme and this amazing IP that is just a ton of fun. It's bright, it's colorful. My kids were instantly drawn to it. The fact that you can ride dinosaurs, my son was sold instantly. It's a really enjoyable game, and I had a lot of fun with it. Maybe not perfect, but you know what? there wasn't a moment where I was upset when playing this game. And I think that's worth noting, that this was just an honestly fun game and quite enjoyable. Like I said, it is for Europe only, so there are services that will forward shipping and all sorts of other stuff. You can look into your options, of course, and feel free to discuss what you find down below with other people. Share that so that they can take advantage of something too if you want, if you're trying to get this outside of that zone. But they can only ship to certain countries based off IP rights. It's not Archon just being silly. It's they have they're limited based off of the IP right holders' ability to distribute. So it's an IP thing, sadly, which means you wouldn't have the He-Man without it, but it is what it is. So anyway, thanks so much for watching. If you appreciated this video, again, let me know in the comments below. I would love to hear your thoughts. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'll be happy to answer them. And as always, thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you guys again really soon. Bye.